Okay, so I'd like to call to order the Merrimack School District SAU 26 School Board meeting for October 17, 2022. Will everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. Fall is moving quickly. So I am opening the floor to our public participation. If you would like to speak, please state your name and your address for the record. If you're a student, you do not have to state your name, your address, just that you are a student. So I open the floor.
Chuck Mower. I'm a lifelong learner. Do I have to give my address? 4 Depot Street. I'm coming before you this evening for a couple of different reasons in public participation, wearing a couple of different hats. I'm the vice president of the Historical Society, and our new facility is now up and running, and we think it's a beautiful baby. And we would like to invite the school board to hold a meeting at our facility. I realize that that requires a certain different arrangement from this facility this evening, but should we be able to accommodate those things, we would love to have you hold a meeting at our new facility. I'd also like to convey to you that we are prepared to enter into extended learning opportunities for your student body, virtually at all levels. We are presently having our curator develop a fourth grade program specifically for introducing students to the Native Americans that lived here in Merrimack. And it's coming together nicely, and we're excited that we can begin to initiate these kinds of programs on a very professional level. Now, if I put on another hat as the chairman of the school budget committee, I, of course, am continuing to be very supportive of extended learning opportunities and competency assessment learning, knowing full well that it's a long road, but it has to begin. And I believe that the Budget Committee is fully supportive of providing specific instructional support for the staff to come together and learn what competencies are and develop how they can be consistently applied across curriculums, across school buildings, and so forth. Again, I know it's a very big thing to ask, but I know in my heart that ultimately competency assessment will correct so many of the difficulties that we have tripped over for some time. The inconsistent application has not given us the measurable outcomes and results that we'd like to have as a professional organization. So I'm telling you to know that I believe you have full support of the Budget Committee to provide those necessary functions over and above all of the other things that I'm sure are on your mind for progress and forward motion for the school district. And we stand ready to communicate with you and share with you, while certainly recognizing that we're all in this together. So thank you very much.
Anyone else that would like to speak? All right, with that, we will move on to recognitions.
We have no recognitions this evening.
Informational updates. Superintendent update.
First of all, one of the things I'd like to say is that if you'll notice on the agenda, under public participation, I've allowed for about 10 minutes between the public participation and informational updates. We know that the statute requires 30 minutes. So I just want to explain to everyone that it may say 10 minutes on the agenda, but we know our obligation in terms of if there are more people who want to attend the meetings and speak publicly. And so we accommodate them in accordance with the statute. I want to thank the Merrimack Fire Department. Today they began fire inspections of the buildings with the head of maintenance, Tom Tuso. There's a number of things that they check to make sure that we're keeping the students and staff as safe as possible, particularly from fire-related incidents. I have the first South Central Superintendent's meeting coming up this Friday in Litchfield. Just took a look at the agenda before I came to the meeting, and it's quite a busy and productive and substantive agenda. In talking with Town Moderator Lynn Christensen, we know that the midterm election that's coming up on November 8th will be very active. There'll be a lot of voters entering the polling sites, which are at JMU's and the Merrimack Middle School. We will be continuing to get out this message. Lynn has asked that I communicate to the public, and we will continue to get the message out, that there will be no parking, no tents, no political campaign materials allowed at those two sites from 6 p.m. on November 7th until 6 a.m. the day of the election. Okay? And so I'll keep reiterating that. I'll mention it again at our next meeting, and we'll send out some messages to the public also through our messaging system. And that's it for tonight. Relatively brief update.
Thank you. Informational update from Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum.
I'll try to be brief as well. On October 7th, we had a full day of professional learning for teachers and professionals across the district. If you watched Superintendent Olson's cable program, has that gone live yet?
I believe so.
Okay, he provided an update, but just to give you a quick synopsis, we had I think a great differentiated day to provide different opportunities for our staff. So our elementary and middle school teachers and unified arts teachers participated in a one-day responsive classroom training. At the high school, they were really spending time unpacking their NEASC report, looking at their vision of a graduate, and spending time in the afternoon really doing a curriculum review of where they are, and to be able to provide that information to me as well, which I think is really helpful. Our Title I tutors participated in a differentiated opportunities based on their language arts coordinator. Some of them did some phonics work, others were looking at phonemic awareness, and all of them did a training on Symphony Math, which is a new program that we're using just with our Title I students. I worked with the ESOL teachers to update our compliance plan, and that'll be coming to the board in the future. You don't have to approve it, but before it goes on the website, I'd like you to be able to take a look. That document hadn't been updated in quite some time, so it was great to meet with that group of teachers, Sagita, Marina, and Jess from the high school. They're a wonderful group of teachers that I hadn't really had an opportunity to meet with. Our Director of Student Wellness, Fern Seiden, who's here with us tonight, organized a great great day for our SEL PLT. They engaged in the lengthy 2-hour no and tell mandatory training, which that group will bring to the rest of the school at our next PD day, which is November 22nd. Like Superintendent Olson, I'll be going to my first district CIA South Central meeting on Friday, so that's interesting. Ours is held in Bedford, and I think that's all I might have for tonight.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to do a comment?
Yes.
I just want to say Amy was kind enough to let me participate in that professional development day here in Merrimack. So I had the wonderful honor of joining our Merrimack teachers and sitting in on a responsive classroom training, responding to misbehavior. And I was just so impressed. I was so impressed with the people that were in the room with me and just seeing how many cohorts of people were in there learning about responsive classroom. That is a really phenomenal program. And we are really thrilled to be able to provide that kind of high level training to our teachers. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for letting me participate and having the ability to go and see our teachers in action. They really are phenomenal, but also thank you for providing those opportunities for our teachers, because it really does benefit our students.
You're welcome. And I just want to thank Matt Chevenel, Fern, and Heather Barker, who helped, us really work through responsive classroom as that really big event that could help throughout the rest of the school year. And we're hoping that springboards some later PD related to responsive classroom. So it is a great training, and I'm so glad you were able to go.
All right. Informational update from Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Well, Bill has a new TV show. Amy has this wonderful event that she just did, and so I paid for it, right? And so now I have some good. This is good news. In accordance with RSAs and all the rules and regulations, we have completed as of October 15th all our bus evacuation drills, which means all the students get on the bus. They're shown where the exits are, how to do the emergency door, everything like that, in a nice, calm, and caring fashion. So that has to be done October 15th and May 15th, and we've done the October 15th drill, and there was a letter notifying Superintendent Olson of that milestone. So just wanted to give you information for the public that we do a lot of these things, but we don't talk about them enough. And it's the first time I've ever mentioned the bus evacuation drills that are done. So that's it. Thank you.
And our school board update.
So just a couple things. I had to stop by the SAU to sign a grant, and we had a really great conversation with Bill and Amy on the vision of developing competencies and some of the things that you were talking about, Chuck. So we're in a really good place and we're moving forward. Also, Bill is no longer an interim. He is the real deal. And the school board is in negotiations for a 2-year contract with him. We're very excited. We think he's done a lot of great work for Merrimack, and he's the perfect leader for us right now.
Thank you very much.
So that's it.
Thank you.
And our student representative update.
I just have a couple quick things, and these are more specifically pertaining to student council. Today, we had the elections for the executive positions of student council, so kind of like the joining of all 4 grades. And so Julia Tebow was voted in as the president. I was voted in as the vice president. Megan Hansen was voted in as secretary. Jack Pecora was voted in as treasurer, and my school board position just carried over. In addition to those elections, freshman class elections are coming up, which is just very exciting to get the freshmen involved in student council. And what this means for the school with all school student council back is that we get to work towards a more cohesive student council with all 4 grades getting to work together, and that's really exciting. So that's all.
Thank you. Sounds like fun. Yes, we are. All right, let's move on to old business. We will start with our school safety update.
Yes. And first of all, Caitlin, congratulations on being vice president. I'm sure it was well deserved. So
Thank you.
and thank you for allowing me to give you and the public a little bit of a snapshot on what we have done to address school safety over the last 9 to 10 months in particular. As we're all aware, I think during the 2 COVID years, school systems were focused on in-person, hybrid, remote learning, and so school safety took somewhat of a back seat to that, although not entirely. And so once we returned to full in-person learning, it was very important for us to get back to focusing on the realities of all of the types of incidents that could visit a school system that were unfortunate, that represented a safety threat to staff and students. And so we wanted to be as out front as possible in addressing a number of training issues that we think are important and processes. So I've given you an outline of about 6 different actions that we have taken in the last 9 to 10 months. First, we've established a district crisis management team. That's a team that met regularly, often every week, once in a while every 2 weeks occasionally, but we kept our focused work throughout the year last year, for a majority of the school year, in putting together an updated flip chart, crisis management flip chart, that is easily readable and can be used at any time during a school emergency. And I want to thank the members that I've listed on this memo who served and were very active on working through all of the different types of possible scenarios, how we would respond to those scenarios, evacuation plans, reunification plans, and a very, very good group to work with. So we've not only focused on the updated crisis management plan, but also we updated the parents' guide to emergency management, what they will need to present if we need to evacuate students from one school to another school due to an emergency, and the materials that they need to have in their possession and present so that we can be assured that we can release their child safely to them or to the appropriate legal guardian. Okay, and that's very important. That security measure is every bit as important as anything else along the way. So, I've given you a list of the various emergencies that we have detailed plans and procedures for. We have engaged in also safety training again. Staff has been trained. We will be training students through the year. It will be age appropriate. Certainly the training at the kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth grade will look different than training at the upper grade levels. It will be utilizing the CRAZE program. CRAZE standing for Civilian Response to Active Shooter Events. Well, it doesn't necessarily even have to be an active shooter. And we pray that will never happen in Merrimack or anywhere else. But that focuses on 3 steps of avoid, deny, and defend. And that's what the training has and will continue to focus on. I want to thank Detective Bill Vanderside from the Merrimack Police Department. He was with us every step of the way, every meeting, in terms of the development of the new flip chart, the crisis management flip chart. He is the one that is conducting also the CRAZE training with our staff, and will be overseeing the training with our students also. So he has been an enormous help to us, and we thank him and the police department for his substantial contribution to the safety of our students and our staff. We have a schedule of safety drills from every school. I didn't put them in the packet because there are some things that you'd like to keep a little bit close to the vest that we're always advised by the police departments to, you don't want to present too much information to the public. But every school has a detailed schedule of 10 different drills that they will conduct during the year. The RSA 189-64 requires that we have 6 fire drills during the course of the year, 2 within the first 30 days of school, and that there be 4 other multi-hazard types of drills. And we have those all planned out, and we discuss them. We'll discuss them periodically. This year we'll have 3 or 4 leadership team meetings devoted specifically to the discussion of school safety, just so we keep that in the forefront of people's minds. We made contact about 3 weeks ago with the New Hampshire Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. Neil Martin, who is our Regional Readiness Liaison, will begin on November 3rd a series of school safety assessments that will take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours each. We'll have myself and Matt and Tom Trousseau from the Maintenance Department, the administration of the building. We'll go through the building, do an assessment. Neil will do an assessment of what we have in place to address school safety and what we don't have in place that he might recommend. With the understanding, obviously, and I've been saying this for many years to parents and to school boards, that we could have barbed wire around our schools and still we couldn't guarantee 100% the safety of everyone. You never know when and how someone might, want to cause harm. And we do our best, and we will continue to do our best to prohibit that. So we look forward to Neil starting those audits. He will give us a report on the schools, and that will form the basis for some of our maintenance or capital requests in the upcoming years to make sure that we fulfill our obligation to our students, our staff, and our families. Matt has written for a school safety grant under the SAFE grant program. That's the Security Actions for Educators. He has obtained a grant of over $100,000, and we will be using that for a specific type of school safety enhancement. We don't want to necessarily mention that, but we know exactly what we're going to do with that money, and that will be accomplished sometime during the year. So that please know that we've been as active as we could possibly be in terms of 5 or 6 areas of addressing school safety, and I will compliment everyone and thank everyone who has been involved, because they've been a very spirited, very serious group of educators who we've been working with, and also Bill Vanderside from the police department, to make sure we try and get it right. And there's no room for mistakes, but once again, we know that anything can happen. We just want to be as prepared as we possibly can be. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Comments or questions?
I just want to say thank you. I mean, I 3 kids in this school district, right? And not only my own children, but so many people around me that I care about, obviously the whole community, but it's just, this has been something that I feel like has been, I don't want to say we've been lackadaisical, but I think that we've not focused on it in this very intentional way. And I'm grateful that we're taking a good hard look at it and making sure we don't have any glaring holes. And thank you, Matt, for applying for that grant to do the next steps that we need to do. I'm really very grateful. This has been a concern of mine for a while, and I'm glad to see us really doing making some progress.
Thank you. And I will say I want to give Matt a compliment, because for many years, because I've reviewed the safety materials, Matt has been at the forefront of addressing school safety, and he's done an outstanding job.
Thank you. Moving on to our new business, we want to welcome up Fern Seiden to talk about investing in social emotional learning. Hang on one second, Fern. We're good for you now.
Good. Great. this is how things go when I come here. I typically have something happen to whatever technical piece is involved. There's always one thing that. Let's see.
Imagine.
You know, for over 40 years, I've been doing budget presentations, and at 4 o'clock, it works fine. At 7 o'clock, it doesn't work. So.
It's no, it's, yeah. I'm sure some of you have recalled some of the things that have occurred. There you go. This should work great. Got it. There it is. It changed it to red.
Weird.
It was looking. It's looking like a red and
Inverted color.
yeah.
Thing. It's not quite connected in there. Apologies.
Thank you so much.
Got it.
Appreciate your help.
Hope it stays working.
We did practice this prior, so
This was working for
this was
several hours.
Vern, right
was.
before you sat there, it was working.
Something about me sitting down here was just. There it is.
This is
Let's
it.
see. Okay, here we
This is
go.
it.
This is. Ah, we did.
There
it.
we go.
Wonderful. All right. Well, it's really, really great to be here tonight. Was really very excited when I read your school board goal setting plan, and I saw the goal category 1, create an engaged, inclusive, and collaborative district culture built on mutual trust and respect. Number 1, which I thought was, that forms the foundation for everything we do. And strategic objective number 3 in particular is invest in the social and emotional development and well-being of our staff, students, and their families. And so here I am, the second week of October, to report on some of our goals for our goals to meet this goal of yours. Since 2015, we have been working on mental health and behavioral health in this district, trying to chart a course to provide the supports that are needed by students and their families. And I really appreciate the articulation of this goal and the way that you acknowledge the connection between the well-being of students and that of our staff and student and families as well. Understanding that it's sort of an ecological model that we would use to understand how well-being is nurtured and fostered in a school community. So I'm going to move forward to share the 4 areas of focus this year. There are many things that we're doing, but these are kind of 4 broad focus areas for us. And I worked, as the plan suggests, with administrators to put this together and to identify these areas. So the 4 focus areas are really looking at a system of care framework, and we'll talk about that in a minute. That's probably the biggest category and kind of work that we're doing. Student social emotional learning and wellness goals, professional development and committee work that drives those objectives, and then community and family engagement. So in our system of care framework, what you'll see here is what is called multi-tiered systems of support, and the B stands for behavior. So you could think of it as behavioral health. This is a framework, as you can see, that relies on a cycle of mobilizing people, using data, making plans and implementing strategies, and in monitoring the progress of those. So we have developed a leadership team for the district for this. So you can recall that in the past we've talked about a mental health committee and we talked about a system of care committee, and now we have a system of care district leadership committee that is using this process and is adopting this. So over the last 2 years during COVID, we received a sizable grant, the Promising Futures grant that I spoke about, I believe last year I spoke to you about. And that was an exploration grant to look at and better understand multi-tiered systems of support and how that could help us in our district implement some of the work that we've been working really hard on over the past several years. And we have decided to move forward with that exploration. And through that process, that enabled us to develop a strong connection with an MTSSB, a multi-tiered system of support consultant from the state DOE named Catherine Leswing, who has become a real friend of our district and is really helping us very much in this implementation process. So the district leadership team has formed some goals. Those goals are to create data collection systems that are really going to help us harness our Power School system to really help us identify how our interventions are supporting students. So we're developing really strong use of data collection systems. We are also, another strategy is improving and expanding our SEL programs and gaining an understanding of how we can develop our approach to restorative practices. One of the things that we did last spring was to go through a fidelity inventory to understand our systems that we have in place. And that is how we are making decisions this year based on that fidelity inventory. And the fidelity inventory sort of looks at all the different components that would be in a strong behavioral health program in schools or system of care to provide and support behavioral health initiatives. So that's how what we're basing our decisions on. And this work is going to help us install data-informed decision-making processes, create systems that improve pathways for accessing student supports. It's also aligned with the state children's mental health law. And I thought that was important to bring forward, that we really are aligning our work with the state system of care that has been developed. And that's really where we're getting that those great partnerships with community agencies to help bring that those services and resources to bear for our students. So I wanted to share the framework a little bit. In the next slide, you can really see how this system of care builds sustainable structures for us. So if in the past we talked a lot about the mental health committee, now we're talking really about implementation. We're really talking about what systems do we need to build to really implement our programs and initiatives in a really strong way. And you'll see at the bottom the tier 1 programs. Sometimes we talk about that as universal programs and systems to put into place. And that's where you get your SEL curriculum, or if you're talking about what are the agreements that we have in schools about how we treat one another, what the expectations are. That's where we really think about climate and culture. And so that's in this tier 1 system, one of our biggest goals is to create tier 1 teams in each school. And these run on that same cycle that we looked at before of really using data-based decision making. And that can be big data such as attendance or behavior data and Power School, but it can also be what a new term I heard called street data, which is really looking at like what's happening on the ground. What is information that we're getting? Like how many visits to the counselors are we getting? Or are there certain things going on in the lunchroom that are consistently happening? And you can go, well, let's work on that. So that's that tier 1 data, and those teams are forming, and they really follow very specific kind of protocols and ways of being that are really important and to get right. So that's where we're using a lot of this work with Catherine Leswing from the state. She's helping us a lot with that. Tier 2 programs are that second layer, and that's where we'll talk more in a minute about our PD work but as well as just sort of thinking about how we can develop stronger supports that are available, that are targeted interventions. And at the very tippy top is, you'll see it says facilitated referrals. That's with our community mental health, and we're forming a lot more. We're really building that connection to Greater Nashua mental health, and I'll share more about that in a minute. So that's one goal. Professional development, that work really drives everything, doesn't it? It's so important that if we have that, we see that schoolhouse and we see the framework, but what are we doing inside the house? How are we investing inside of that house to the supports that are needed and what we need in our schools? So the PD is to meet those needs. We've heard about responsive classroom. That is a gold standard SEL, CASEL, Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. That is one of the top programs there is, and to get that into our school is just fantastic. There's also, we've done a lot of work with executive functioning. That's at the high school and middle school level. That's been very important to our work, really understanding and helping our teachers learn how to think about how students learn. And then as they design their plans for their classrooms, just thinking about how do we embed understanding of executive functioning development into the classroom lesson plans. We also are continuing to do work with suicide prevention, mandated reporting, as you heard before, CPI, and we're also looking a lot more at fidelity to our SEL programming as well as SEL integration. I'm really excited about this second area of creating our district SEL PLT. We're looking at really bringing together our K-12 student support team, school counselors, social emotional learning support specialists, and others on that team to really understand our work together, have a vision that's K-12, and really start thinking about what kind of PD, targeted PD, do they need to really meet the students' needs, because things change as time goes by, and we really do need to make sure that we're building capacity. Finally, there are smaller groups that are meeting. For instance, we've pulled together a group to look at our bullying prevention programming and to try to align that and make sure that we all are understanding what each school is doing rather than and making sure there's alignment there. We're looking at the middle school SEL advisory and thinking how can we build capacity for that. There's a small group of people looking at a program right now called Character Strong to see if that might be a good fit. And then, of course, we've talked about the NEASC work at the high school. They're looking at their vision of a graduate and trying to look at how the SEL competencies are embedded within those vision of a graduate action statements. So our next goal is within student social emotional wellness. This is that tier 1 layer that's so essential and drives all the way up through all 3 tiers, actually. One thing that you'll see and why your goal was right in line with this model. This is the model we use from the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. Those are the 5 competencies in the middle and the colors, and then around them are the circles, and those circles represent just what you were talking about in your goal that you set. We have to think about our communities, our families and caregivers, our schools and classrooms, and on all the different ways we can reinforce these SEL goals. So we would like to see some improvement in our program fidelity. Last spring, we did some focus groups about our fidelity to our SEL programming, and we're trying to improve upon that. We're also excited to implement a self-regulation program through a grant we received from the United Way for kindergarten and first grade to really dig into self-management and self-awareness. That is, those orange areas will probably be most targeted with that. Very important for young children who spent 2 really formative years at home versus in school. So this is really helpful for us to be boosting the programming at that level. We are working on aligning our SEL competencies with the vision of a graduate and soon our vision of a learner. So we'll be able to unpack those and really make sure that there's alignment throughout everything we do. I'm excited to continue a PD service learning project from last year, which was with our middle and high school teachers to really talk about SEL integration and what that means. And that's kind of trying to just build up more capacity for those who are interested in learning more. We're exploring restorative practices this year. That is another one of those target areas for our district system of care team. And I personally have a goal of becoming better at managing my website for sharing with the public our information about SEL. And then also working actually to replace and give more to our teachers about PD and trainings and opportunities and for them. And this is the last goal, community and family engagement. This is a picture I had to share from our mental health fair, social emotional wellness fair last spring for Mental Health Awareness Month. We held that was held at Camp Sargent in partnership. We had a lot of support from the YMCA. And we are really working to respond to the community needs that we have. It's probably one of the most important things in system of care work is community and family engagement. So I'm really excited to work with this group of this advisory group really that we have, a team that we have that works on this with me, of parents representing each school. They are amazing. They have become experts in social emotional learning. Bar none, they're probably some of the most expert people I know in this field. They have really developed their competencies and are ready to be the voice for this. And to help, one of the strategies and hopes that they've articulated is really working on networking and building that sense of support for one another, because parenting is really hard. And so developing a real sense of community is really important to them. We want to make sure we're providing resources. We have a community survey out right now to get information from the community about what they are interested in. I wanted to share that last year we were pretty successful. I was excited to learn about how you can get analytics from your website. And we had quite a lot of action on the website because we posted a lot of our recordings from our evening events. And last year we had 309 people attend our programs. We had 21 events throughout all of last year in the evening. It was a range of topics. One of the most popular topics was our social media event that we talked that was talking about the use of social media and the impact on health, mental health. We also had a lot of success with our probably one of the most well-attended events was with Whitney Tave, who is going to be working with us more on mindfulness and bringing mindfulness into our parenting and trying to learn about regulating with our children. And she's really a wonderful asset to our community in bringing that expertise to us. So those are our 4 goals. And I'm excited to return in July and to share more about where we are at that point. So I will open it up to questions.
Questions or comments?
I just have comments. So I think the importance of your job, it's all about prevention, then intervention, counseling, and back to prevention. And I think back to my first year teaching, I was coaching in the fall, and there was a student athlete who was cutting and had gone to an assistant coach, and the assistant coach promised her she wouldn't tell. And the assistant coach told me, and I was like, we have to tell, like, but to have you as a resource for that prevention piece, because that's part of something that you probably do more often than we even know. It's so important that the teachers have a resource, the staff has a resource, the kids have a resource, because it's all about prevention. Of course, there is intervention, there is counseling, but that prevention piece is critical. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you. And that is that tier 1 layer. We can look at that as prevention, early intervention, and more like crisis intervention. So that prevention absolutely is essential, and building our capacity to respond to that. I would want to mention the amount of community connection that we've made over the past few years has been remarkable. We are now up to 2 days a week with Greater Nashua Mental Health in our schools. That is through, you have to be a client of Greater Nashua Mental Health in order to access that, but they are willing to come to our school and provide that service for students who, for them, that is the ultimate priority in order to get them back into the classroom. And part of that is the Renew program, which is a wraparound program, which is incredible. And I'm super excited to have that now in our district. We have developed so many great community allies working with us. NAMI, New Hampshire, Bridges. We have a lot going on, and I feel like that's one of the most important pieces of this system of care, and how we connect to our own backyard, our community services, because we cannot do this alone. The schools are, one of many places where we interact with young people, and we all have to be in it together. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and just kind of going along with what Lori had said, I've had students drop some pretty heavy stuff on me in the past, and there's this feeling of I need to help this kid, but I have no idea what to do. And so to have those kind of resources and to know where to go and where to get these students the help that they need is just priceless. There's no way of beating, especially now. I mean, really, historically, we should have had it forever, but now after coming out of, the last 2 years, kids need this stuff, teachers need this stuff, parents need this stuff. And one of the things I loved was that last slide with the picture with just community members, and how, these aren't like hired consultants from, the DOE. These are just parents and community members that want to participate in this and help our kids where in the times and areas that they need the most help. So I think that's amazing. So thank you. That's a lot of great stuff.
Jenna.
So I just want to go back to what I said about the responsive classroom. When we talk about helping students, solidifying that tier 1 base where all of our students are getting that support is just so critical, especially coming out of the pandemic, but anytime. And so our investment in responsive classroom is a true investment in that base to all students. This is how we deal with students, and we deal with them in a positive way, in a proactive way, and all of that. So that is, for community members that might not know, that is a deep investment in our tier 1, which is huge. I love seeing that the middle school and the high school SEL focuses are going to be something we're going to look at and kind of focus on as a part of this goal, because of that huge investment in responsive classroom. Responsive classroom only goes to a certain grade levels at 6 or 8.
8.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that the tenets of responsive classroom that we are embedding in our system for kindergarten through 8th grade, right? That our kids are responding, our teachers are doing certain things a certain way, our kids have learned to respond in a certain way. We can't then send them to high school and be like, what is happening here? And I'm not saying that is happening. I'm just saying I don't know how this happens, but if we're teaching our teachers to teach and behave in a certain way, and then teaching our students to act and react in a certain ways, that has to extend up to the high school. I want to make sure that the high school teachers and people up at the high school understand the foundation of responsive classroom and how that the tenets of it and how those can translate into high school. So we're not just dropping them off and being like, okay, and now we're back to 1975 and how we did I'm not saying that's how we do it. I'm just saying we want to make sure it's a cohesive transition, and that is happening, that mindset of responsive classroom carries over into the high school in the ways that it can and should, right? Like obviously high school's a whole different animal. I understand that. So that's why I love seeing these two things on on your list of things. I love that Lori also mentioned coaches, because coaches are such a huge part of a school experience for athletes, and we don't invest enough in our coaches. I don't know what that looks like, how that is facilitated, whether there needs to be some funding for that. But sometimes I think we bring these coaches in and we're like, hey, good job, go teach baseball or go coach baseball or whatever. And then we expect they're doing it in a way that aligns with our values as a district. And that's not always the case. Speaking from personal experience, but also knowing and hearing a lot of stories. I'm not saying our coaches aren't fantastic. A lot of them are. But let's make sure we train them. This is how we deal with students in the Merrimack School District. This is how we do not deal with students in the Merrimack School District. And I think that's a gaping void. I'm not seeing it here. I'm not saying it has to be our number one priority, but I think we need to make sure that anyone within our district working with our students, especially those student athletes, it's so much a huge part of their lives, and it contributes to their mental health. And that's why I think it needs to be, but it could be the robotics person if they're not a staff member. It could be the theater director if they're not a staff member. It could be these people that come in. I don't know if it's as much as having a summer training for 2 hours you want to coach in our district. You need to come and you need to sit and listen about, this is how we deal with students, because it's kind of a free-for-all right now. Like, you get what you get, and maybe they're fantastic at dealing with students. I can name some that we all know are, but then we've had some missteps, and so we want to make sure that all employees, even the very part-time ones like our coaches, are on board and coaching and engaging with kids in a way that aligns with the values of our district.
That is a great, that's a really great point. I actually did one training for coaches a couple of years ago. So it brings up that we tried that in the past. And I know that Mike Susi is definitely a wonderful advocate for this as well. Right now, it's worth mentioning, and I put it in my October newsletter that everybody will be getting soon. There is a free One Trusted Adult training for parents. There's one for parents and one for educators that we were able to get this summer. The DOE was providing this. If you had to respond to their request, but we applied for it and got these free resources, and those would be great trainings. They don't run out, they are there, they're free. And One Trusted Adult is a really wonderful program that's very New Hampshire based. Brooklyn Rainey has started this program. She's getting national attention now, and she comes from that kind of coaching perspective. That would be a great resource as well for people coming into the district.
It just comes from what I hear from the community. I hear a lot about athletics, and obviously academics and what happens at school is a huge part. We want to focus on that, but we can't discount the fact that the kids that are involved in athletics or robotics or theater, or whatever it is they're involved in, it impacts their lives. When they have a negative experience in that realm, it can impact everything else. I've seen it in my own house, but I've also heard of it from so many different parents. So just a thought I had while I was sitting here.
So I love when Mr. Rogers said that emotions are mentionable and manageable. And that's one of the things that affects so much of our lives. And that's why it was such an important goal for this board and for our leadership. And so I fully support helping kids with all of that. So they can't succeed academically if they can't manage what's happening inside. I have a short question for you, and a question I'm going to return to from the last time you were here, just for clarification. The short question is, when was the last time the elementary SEL curriculum was updated? Because I know there's updates ever so often.
That is such a good question, Lori. So the SEL program it hasn't been updated. We are using Second Step, and their updates are now all going digital. So they have sort of transitioned to a fully digital program. The digital program has actually, what's funny is that I was just in Chicago at the Big Castle conference, and I happened to sit down next to all of the second step like executives, and so I got to talk to them about their program and ask all the questions that I've been wondering about. So they said, I asked them pointedly, are the kits still, do you feel they're all still research based and, would you stand by them still? And they were like, absolutely. But they have moved a lot on to the digital side of the house. They are focusing more, for instance, on mindsets versus like skills for learning, for instance. They also have included formative and summative assessments that are project-based learning. And they've embedded those right into the program, which is a huge improvement. So yes, we need to perhaps look at that and start wondering. I have access to that program. So one of the thoughts this year was to have some teachers try out the digital program to see. I'm a little concerned that we make everything digital these days, and it could just be that I'm older and I just love the idea of sitting in front of kids in a circle with the picture and like having that sense of community and feeling and connection. And I'm worried about going digital and having it just be kind of like click and play. So that's what I was asking them, but they said they're having a lot of positive feedback about it for engagement levels. So I think we have to leave it up to teachers and kids to make that decision. So thank you for asking that great question. It's totally relevant and has been on my mind a lot.
It's on mine because I'm the professional development that I'm actually teaching where I'm at is very much about mindset.
Oh, wow. So they do a lot with mindset in this new program.
I think that's the way to, especially post-pandemic. I
Yeah.
think focusing on thriving is so important.
So interesting.
So
yeah.
okay, so I asked you this before, and again, this is just clarification for the community. Our teachers are not engaging in mental health assessments. We have a team that makes referrals out. You have that on the tier 3.
Right.
And I just
we
want
don't
you
make
to
them.
clarify again that
Yep.
we refer for those kinds of professional services with our partners.
100%. We are not. One of the something that we really want to stress is that social emotional learning is not mental health. So social emotional learning are the skills we need to be successful in life. And really, I mean, if you look up, all of the major companies will tell you that they can teach you how to code. They can teach you how to, do whatever, task that their company is working toward, whatever their goals are. They can teach you that, but they cannot teach self-management. They cannot teach goal-directed persistence. They cannot teach empathy. They need to hire people who are ready for that. And there are schools all over the country that are so invested in this, and we are right up there with them, which is exciting because this is how our students will be ready to learn, whether they go directly into the workplace, whether they work in the community, or whether they go to college, so that they can persist through college. And because we know at the college level, they're having a great deal of problem with retention. So they're starting to look at SEL because they can't retain their students. So this is SEL is really good for prevention. And when students are struggling with mental health concerns and they're interfering with their learning, that's where the community connections are so important. So we can get in there and get them, can work with the family to help them make choices about what they want for their students, for their children, and the kind of help they want. And it really has to be about that family engagement at that point. So no, we are not trained to do that. We don't have that. That's not where our expertise lies. So we would absolutely rely on the experts in that case.
Thank you. It's just there's so much that floats around thanks to social media and things. And I think it was very important to just clarify that point again for our community.
Thank you so much for bringing it up. Yeah, I mean, even the everybody in this field talks about the importance of that messaging, that we are not, SEL is not mental health. It's not an equivalent. You know, it's two different, one serves well the other. It can make us more mentally healthy to have those skills. But
Any other questions or comments?
May I just make a comment?
Yes.
I think every time Fern appears before you, you get the understanding that her heart and soul is 1,000% oriented towards the wellness of our students and our staff. And I could listen to her all night, quite honestly, but we couldn't ask to have a better person in charge of SEL in this school district. And thank you for all the work
Thank
you do
you.
for us.
thank you so much. Well, it is my pleasure, and I love it. So I appreciate the opportunity very, very much.
Well, we thank you for coming in, especially since we put it out there as a goal for this month.
Oh.
We appreciate it.
Love it. Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, we will move on to to discussing ELOs, extended learning opportunities, and work skills.
Okay, so just really briefly, Ed 702.06, it's a New Hampshire law that gives our high school students opportunities to gain credit outside of the classroom. So we've had deep discussions about extended learning opportunities where students can develop their learning, they develop their competencies. The model usually is they create a timeline and then they do a presentation based on demonstrating evidence that they understand the competencies around whatever extended learning opportunity. In high schools, there's 8.5 credits of elective credits. And so I've had a brief conversation with Amy and Bill, but we would like to develop a policy around that we are accepting extended learning opportunities, and work skills would be a part of that. Some school districts with work skills, they just do straight hours, which extended learning opportunities is not based on hours, but work skills can be 480 hours, you get 2 credits, so it depends on how we want to do our own work skills. Do we want to do straight up hours, or do we want to do it by an extended learning where we talked about competencies? But there's so many students, even, Chuck talked tonight about the Historical Society. They want to get students involved there. There's students who are coaching MYA teams. There's kids that are doing drama. There's kids that are doing so many things that this would be such a great opportunity. So I'm just looking forward to having a policy and then some paperwork that we can start the process. And this year we can pilot it slowly, but anybody who's interested, we just need to know where they get the paperwork, how they fill it out, and who's going to be, do we have teachers who are going to be available to take on a student and be the evaluator? I think that's probably where we'll be first off, but that's all up to you. But that's just the discussion.
And may I just say, we want to ramp up certainly our effort sooner rather than later on ELOs. And the important thing to remember is that extended learning opportunities are for everyone, not just a certain group of students. And, in education for many years, we've talked about the importance of both rigor and relevance. Well, here's where students are able to understand the relevance of what they're learning to a real world life experience. And so we're really going to begin to work in this area, and hopefully in the not too distant future we can have a program that is a model that you're very proud of.
And I've had sorry, did I cut anyone off? Oh, sorry. I've had the pleasure of having a few ELOs under my belt now, working with students, and just watching them take ownership of their own education and coming up with their own competencies and helping them figure out a timeline. And by the time they're done that, just a whole different perspective on, this is something they've chosen because they're passionate about it. It's an interest to them. and then their eyes are just so much more open at the end of it about what goes into something like that, whatever the ELO is. So the fact that we're taking steps to get this going, I think is a game changer for so many of our students who are maybe already, I know what I want to do, I want to get started on it now. And I think we need to make that happen for them. So I love this. This is such a great thing.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate of this as well. Lori, thank you for getting this on here. A huge part of why we're doing this, just to explain to the community, is because, you know, when we talk about graduation rates, those kids that struggle in a traditional learning environment benefit wholeheartedly from an opportunity like an extended learning opportunity, right? You know, I know kids who have struggled in the classroom but have done some amazing things in the community or outside of the classrooms or creatively that couldn't be articulated or demonstrated in a school building, but have some absolute value in an elective way. You know, like it could absolutely be an elective, and the learning that has occurred went, you know, unacknowledged. And it's a way of acknowledging to kids, you are learning something valid and important and totally valuable for life in this thing you're doing totally outside of school. And so part of why we invest in this is to, you know, encourage students to be creative and encourage students to take initiative, encourage students to take a risk and do something different, but also to increase our graduation rate by saying to those kids who literally sit in a classroom every day and think their soul is dying. I mean, I'm not, you know, I mean, no offense to anybody in the Merrimack School District. They would do it anywhere, right? You get to put them in any school anywhere and they're just like, this is not for me. There have to be multiple pathways. You know, the CTE program, awesome pathway. That is a great answer for some kids. But this is an answer for other kids who don't see an elective in the course of studies that speaks to them, but they know this other thing they do, or they work, like you said, 400 hours a year and have learned incredible things about management through that opportunity or whatever it is. I agree with, you know, what Lori has said. This is a way of increasing our graduation rate and helping kids realize that there's a multitude of ways to learn and acknowledging the hard work they do even outside of school.
Well, I look forward when we get to see that policy and get to vote on it. All right, moving on to the amazing grant application on our Security Action for Education.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've already mentioned this a few times, so I'll just go over it briefly. There was a Safe Action grant for education through the Department of Homeland Security. We kind of have been going through what we wanted to apply for, and Bill and I had a conversation perhaps like a couple of months ago, and his idea just seemed like a natural for this, and so we put it in. We've got the early acceptance because we wanted to be first in line, because you never know with these grants how the money's going to flow. So I want to get our hook in there, and we got it in there for something that's very viable and is going to be very useful. It's going to be something that will inhibit unwanted intrusion into the buildings. So it's all 6 schools, $120,000. It's the first step. We're going to go back and dip into the well after we have some time to have some deeper conversations to see if we can get some more money. But this is the first step. So thank you.
You know, the important thing to remember about school safety measures is that no one particular action or improvement is enough in itself to solve the school safety issue. It's an aggregation of different components. The significance is most acts of school violence are over in 10 minutes or less. And so this measure that we're going to implement, along with others, are meant to buy seconds, by minutes. And that could make the difference between being safe and being not so safe. And so, you know, we'll keep chipping away at it. There are some things that are more subtle, some things that are more evident, but sometimes it's the ones that are subtle, which that are just as important.
If I could just elaborate, just the historical perspective, because I've been here for a long time now. 20 something years ago when I first started here, there were no secure entrances to these schools, not a one. It first started with the construction of the 3-story addition. I call it the new wing of the high school, right? And, they had the airlock style entrance. Then we had to put them at, then we did Mastrocola Elementary School. Then we did Reed's Ferry with the additional space of the office in the front. We did Thornton's Ferry. And then we actually moved the offices of JMU's from where they used to be, where special ed is, to where they are right now, which was the natural entrance to the school. We just put it back and made a vestibule. And when we designed and built the middle school, that was standard fare by then. So there's a lot of little things over a period of years that have been done that, it's kind of too bad we live in the world we do, but let's be realistic about it and let's face it head on. So what Bill said about, putting in multiple pathways to provide deterrence, no one solution is going to fix everything. So we have to look at multiple solutions to try and do the best we can always, because the safety of our kids and the safety of our staff is paramount in our thinking in the school district right here. So just wanted to mention that.
And I would like to also mention that is one of a long list towards our facilities goal that we shared with the public. All right, so we have 2 other categories in new business. The first one is that we need to take a public vote on dropping interim from our chief educational officer's title. So I will entertain a motion.
I would like to make a motion that we drop the term interim and make Mr. Olson our official CEO, Chief Educational Officer.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Passes 5-0-0.
Everybody counts. Everybody counts.
7-0-0.
7-0-0-8-9-9-0-0.
Thank you for your vote of confidence. It's very much appreciated.
Well, we did give your evaluation last month, but again, we are very, very pleased to have you on board, and it is a pleasure to work with you.
And likewise, thank you very much. We work well as a team.
I agree. All right, and teacher performance evaluation under other.
So this just a blinker before the turn. We spent a lot of time this summer doing goals, so this is kind of a little bit off of the goal train, but the blinker is we'd like to look at the evaluation system and possibly streamline it, increase more walkthroughs of teachers, especially experienced teachers. So it's just to give everyone, here's the blinker. We're going to be doing maybe some work and talking about teacher evaluation to streamline it and make it more effective and more genuine for teachers.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? All right, moving on to policies. Second review of use of physical restraint and seclusion.
I will say to you that in all of the policies that are listed here, there have been no public comments to this point in time. I want to thank Sandy for putting in the updates and the edits and the revisions. Thank you to Naomi for suggesting some of those at the last meeting. Also want to say thank you to her for continuing to put this policy progress chart in that helps us determine where we are with the first, second, and third review. And so, I really don't have anything more to say on these policies other than, they've all been reviewed by legal counsel also. And so any of the additions, revisions, or deletions that you see are a result of a thorough review by our legal counsel.
Any comments or questions on the policies?
I'm sorry. So, I had a big list of ones that I sent to Bill and to Sandy. And some of them were just like things that they could just do without mentioning it to anyone else. Cause it was, like this sentence has an extra A in it, or, there's a word that's in the wrong place here, stuff like that. But there were a couple of things I noticed when I was reading through it that we kind of decided were more appropriate to bring up in front of the entire board and possibly decide that they're nothing and we're not going to worry about it because, as you said, legal counsel has seen it. But it was just kind of questions I had that came up. Which one are we doing first? This is physical restraint?
Yes.
Okay. That one
JKAA.
yeah. So there's two on this one. I'm going to have to find them on page 10. On page 10, section L, what does my note say? Oh, my note says see page 8, section 6, almost identical. So if you go back to page, where is it? Page 8, section 6. Page 8. So the language in section 6, in that 6 there, it says almost exactly the same thing in those two places. And my question, I am assuming this is the question for the lawyer, is why does it say the same thing in two places, and is that necessary, or should we like strike one of those paragraphs?
That's a good question. I will check with
It's funny because that's actually not my original note from that paragraph. I noticed that when I was reading it today. So the first like 2 times I read through it, I didn't even notice that. And then today I was like, wait a minute, we've got the same thing in 2 places. Why is that there? And my other question about the last sentence of that paragraph there on page 10 was, and I guess this probably is also a question for the lawyer because it was just me wanting to understand it. It said, so this one is about if we're having a lot of incidents of this, the parent or guardian can request a review at any time following an instance of restraint or seclusion. And the next sentence is, such request shall be granted if there have been multiple instances of restraint or seclusion since the last review. And my question was just about the language. Does this mean that we will only grant the request if there's multiple instances, or is that just giving us the option of us saying, it's only been one time, so we'll see what happens again? I just was curious why it was worded that way.
I look at it as strictly options. I mean, we will always err on the side of listening to a parent and concerns at any point in time, whether there's one complaint or 101 complaints. And so
that was what I suspected, but
Mhm.
I wanted to make sure we weren't limiting ourselves, and I didn't think it was, but I wanted to.
No.
And then my other one was
But
on.
can we go back to that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would just note that if the lawyer says we need to keep both paragraphs, the page 8, section 6 needs to align with page 10, where we cross out the and, put a period, capitalize the S for such request.
Mhm.
I agree. And then my other, so page 11, section O, there's a little blank part here where we need to decide upon something.
Where we keep things on file.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
where are
yeah.
we keeping these records on file?
Well, we keep the reports on file in my office.
That's
The
what I
principal's
figured.
office, but also in my office.
That's what I figured. We just need to add it here. And
Yeah, I'm sorry we missed that.
Sandy, I think, wasn't comfortable putting it in without us
Mhm.
bringing it up at this level. So that was all I had for that one. Thank you.
Okay.
Moving on to the public participation at board meetings policy. We have a revised copy in our packets for tonight that we're on, so make sure you use the one that was on our desk, not the one in our mailer. Did you have anything about that one? I'm looking at you, Naomi.
I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry.
Thank God someone loves policy.
I don't know that I would say I love them. I just feel like I don't have much of a background in education, so a lot of the times you guys are talking about things and I'm like, I'm just going to trust that you all know what you're talking about because it sounds good. And this I can look at and be like, okay, I have a logical brain and I can read things and I can say things that make sense about this. So, we need to pick one of the two. We never did that last time
That's correct.
on option 7. And I think we all wanted the second one, but I don't know if we need to take an official vote on that.
Need to be a vote, or does it need to be?
Can we just say?
You know, I think since it's a policy and you are given that option, I would feel more comfortable if you took a vote.
Yeah, we need to take a vote. I'm rereading it, so give me a moment.
Yeah, some of the material changes is the first focuses on only comments on those items on the agenda.
Right.
The other is a little bit more open.
More broad. So we've always had a policy where part of our public comments were on anything district and part of them were agenda only. Now we have to choose which way we want to go with that. It's an or, not a both and. I think this would be a good time to have a discussion before a motion.
I'm just in favor of not limiting it. That's just, I understand that we have agendas, and obviously what's on our agenda would be the most important thing. But as a member of the public that's come to talk about something that wasn't on the agenda, I wouldn't want to be turned away an opportunity to come and speak about something that didn't happen to be on the agenda, but I might want to bring to the board's attention in that way. That's just my personal feeling.
And I would, sorry.
I agree with Jenna. I think sometimes, the public comes to a public meeting and they don't know all the rules. They're going to come here with a rule book, but they have something to say. And I think as a school board member, I'd want to hear what the public has to say.
And sometimes we learn really great bits of information from public participation. So yeah, no, I'm with you guys.
Yeah, I agree. I like the second one better. I don't want to put limits on what people can say.
So would you like to make the motion, Naomi?
I would be happy to. I move that we adopt the second paragraph there underneath the or in number 7 on the policy, the one that says that except as otherwise provided in this policy, members of the public may offer comments on agenda items or upon any other matter of public concern, etc.
Do I have a second? Ken seconds it. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that policy will be revised for another reading.
Thank you for that.
All right, and I have one more thing to say about this policy. At the last meeting, I brought up the topic of potentially accepting written public comment, and everyone kind of voiced their thoughts, which was great. I really liked that we had a discussion about it. I don't remember whose points were whose, and I hadn't really thought about it up until then. I was just sort of bringing it up to take the temperature of the room, and because I know people had mentioned it to me, that was something that I had heard from the public that they were interested in us supporting, and so I kind of my thoughts came together and over the last 2 weeks, and so my thoughts on that is that I disagree. I don't think that it would be unreasonable to provide somehow for written public comment. I don't think we would want to do it the same way we did during COVID. I think there would be very reasonable limits put in place, and I don't think we would accept written comments at the expense of people who came here in person. I actually got my hands on the New Hampshire School Boards Association's sample policy for public comment, and they have as one of the optional provisions for boards to consider some language around written policies. Yeah, sorry, written public comments in their sample policy. And my thought, the reason I disagree is kind of our prime constituency is families with kids, and a lot of them have jobs, and a lot of them have situations where it's really hard to get out of an evening, and our society in general is kind of going towards, they can watch the meetings at home.
Question. If someone is on the losing end, can we bring I'm just talking about Robert's rules. So if someone's on the losing end of an argument, I don't think that person can reconsider.
So
Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just saying.
So
You are on the losing end of the argument, so you don't get to reconsider. Someone else would have to bring it back under reconsideration.
So I don't think we never voted on it.
we didn't vote on
We
it.
just had a
That's what I-
discussion.
We didn't have a vote.
And I was actually going to say, when I'm done
I thought
talking,
we
I was
did
going to
vote.
say, I think we should vote on it because it got added as a line that we won't accept public comment via email. And I think we should vote on that before that's added in.
I thought we did.
So I will take a motion.
So I guess I will move that we consider, I will move that we consider accepting written public comments. If you don't agree with me, you can still second it for discussion, and then you can all vote me down. It's totally okay.
Is there a second? There's no second, so the motion fails.
Can I finish what I wanted to say, though?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Where was it? I have like a whole page of notes. And this was just because I didn't really think of what I wanted to say last meeting. It wasn't because like I wanted to revisit it or anything. I was totally understand that I'm in the minority there. Part of what I think about when I look at policies is we sort of had some discussion around people could email us ahead of time and that we would take that into consideration. And that was, if people were interested in contacting via email, that was kind of a better vehicle to do it because we had time to think ahead of time. And part of my thought about that was like, for the future, we're not always going to be the people sitting in the chairs. And I feel like we should, my personal decision making is based around what's sort of a best case scenario for everyone and like what's going to give people the most voice. And that was kind of why I was thinking about it that way. And I get the logistical concerns 100%. It definitely, that was one of my other comments, was that I get that there would be like an issue around, okay, who's collecting these and how are they recorded? And it adds like a whole nother wrinkle to the meetings, and everybody already has tons of work. So I am cognizant of that. But if people felt passionately about it, it would be possible, and it's not something that like is totally unheard of.
So let me affirm your feeling about where do they have the most voice? And here's the answer. If they email us during the week or something like that, we get to respond. If they email us as part of public comment, there's no response. We can't respond back to their email.
Right. I think that was the part I missed, was kind of I think we need to figure out a way to get people to realize that the best, if they want to have a conversation, the best way to get to us is an email. The purpose of public comment is to have your thoughts on the record. And so providing a vehicle for people who maybe can't attend in public to have their thoughts reflected in the record would be the purpose of written public comment, not necessarily having a conversation. So thank you for listening to me.
You're welcome. Any other things on that policy? Typos? Anything? Okay. Moving on to student records and access. And by the way, I appreciate the red ink.
It helps a lot.
I do want to say, just as a matter of public comment, page 6, 7, and 8 clarify who can request these records in a way that makes it very clear that, you know, you just like your next door neighbor can't request them. It makes very clear that the only people who can request them are people who have an official business with requesting them.
I have a piece of feedback about because this year we sent in the 3-week thing of so there's the directory information. And I was wondering if it's feasible when you send the release to the parents saying this is what directory information is, and this is you can opt out of it, to include in there here are some examples that might where we might release this information, so parents understand what they're signing off on. Because I know amongst my group, a lot of people got this notification and they're saying, well, of course I'm going to say, no, you can't release my students' information. And I'm wondering if there are cases where they might actually want that to be able to happen.
I think that's a very good suggestion.
Anything else? Jenna?
All I was going to say is it's possible we might even attach this policy to that, which would answer all of those questions for the most part, wouldn't it? I mean, it's possible we could just
in the letter we'll put a link to the policy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That could answer a number of the questions that I think I got during that time.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other thoughts on that policy?
We discussed in the directory information, the weight and height of members of athletic teams, and why is that in there, and does that have to be in there? I noticed it's highlighted, and I was wondering if we were waiting on clarification from legal or something about that.
No, I think at a previous meeting you expressed a desire to eliminate that.
So let me ask a question. When there are competitions like weight classes for wrestling, there is a referee that takes care of that piece, so it doesn't really need to be in the directory in that case.
The only other question I have, and I don't know the answer to this question, is it if there's a recruiter recruiting somebody, could it be that they contact the school for confirmation of information given by a student? Height and weight could be something that they might need. That's the only reason I could see for it to be in there. You know, if a football player says he's 6'4" and 300 pounds, you want to make sure he's 6'4" and 300 pounds and not 6'2" and 150 pounds. I don't know.
That's possible.
I have no idea. Somebody else has to answer that question, not me. And take it out if there's a reason for it to be there. Is what I'm saying.
That was my only concern last time too, was just make sure I don't have any problem with taking it out. I just want to make sure that we're not like accidentally shooting ourselves in the foot.
And my only other comment is, student records are, they're confidential, and sometimes you have divorced parents and you have a parent that is not legally allowed to get the record. So I know the school district has a huge responsibility around making sure the custodial parent or the parent and the other parent might even be the parent but not be eligible to receive it. So it's a lot of work for the school district to maintain these records and then understand who they go to.
And that you're right. And thank you for bringing that up, because that's very important. And we do receive an increasing number of court orders, of restraining orders, all sorts of family related legal documents that do make it very complicated for us. And it is absolutely vital that we understand who information can go to and who it cannot go to.
So I think just for clarification, it might help to vote if we're going to keep the weight and height, I cannot talk tonight, of members of athletic teams. I will entertain a motion.
I'm quite frankly afraid to make a motion to take it out because I'm afraid of the unintended consequences. Like, can we ask somebody like Mike Susi
Mike
if
Susi?
he knows? Like, do athletic?
We can.
I'll check with him.
I mean, like in the
tomorrow.
recruiting process, do they contact you? You know, I mean, I don't know if we have anybody going D1, but in the off chance that we do and it gets competitive and it comes down to a height and a weight, I just don't want any of our kids to end up at a disadvantage because we take it out.
We've got a third review for it, so absolutely.
So I read the Nashua policy. It was not in the Nashua policy, but I do know some people brought up wrestling, football. A lot of times there is, in the programs or something with that height and weight, but it's just, it's parent approved also. Like they get an athletic, well, in wrestling, it's different because everyone knows this is the 160-pound wrestling rate. So everyone knows that person's 160 pounds, but in football, the kids actually write in their weight. It's not like their weight and then it's so, but I understand it will get illegal if it'll make everyone feel better.
Since we're asking legal about that, my other question, or whoever, yeah. Well, this one wouldn't be Mike Susi. My other question about that is student's name, address, email, telephone number, and date and place of birth. Date of birth is listed there, and it's also listed under personally identifiable information, which is stuff that we're not supposed to release to like the general public, which makes sense. I was just wondering what date and place of birth was used for in terms of this kind of stuff, because that also seemed like kind of personal information. Maybe like college admissions or something.
It could be.
Yeah.
Naomi, it's very difficult in reading through all of these criteria to really try to think through who wants this information and why they want it, and who's eligible.
I guess my question was kind of, is that, because I know a lot of these policies are dictated by state law and ed rules, like is the directory information defined somewhere in state law and ed rules? And
Yes, it is.
yeah. So that's one
And,
of the things that's
and
in it.
date of birth and place of birth are listed as indirect identifiers, not not non-releasable identifiers like social security numbers. So there is a distinction made between those
This is all
legally.
And I was just going to say, so records are, decades old, and sometimes people have the same name and so they're, so when you're looking for the data, you got to go deep. That's all.
And it bears repeating, parents have the ability to opt out of this at any time, which is what the purpose of that email that we send is. This is just defining how and when or why and what would be released.
Yeah. And this is all under the umbrella of, FRIPA, which is the Family Educational Rights Privacy Act. So, it's basically federally driven.
All right. And hopefully this is our adoption night for change of class or school assignment on the basis of best interest or manifest educational hardship. Any comments?
So this was another one where I sent a whole list of things I'd noticed to Bill and Sandy, and there were a couple things where they felt it was more appropriate to say it in front of the whole board than to unilaterally make a change. And I don't think we have to make a change because it's been reviewed by council and everything, but it was just stuff I noticed and stuff I thought about. Page 3, section 4, under transportation. Transportation for a student reassigned to a school in another district under Section A shall be the responsibility of the parent guardian. Do we need to specify that? Does say somebody's at one of the elementary schools and they switch to one of the other elementary schools, do we need to spell that out, or does that, because that's their home school, does it count when we say that's this district?
That's always the understanding, that if a child moves from their district by reason of residence to another one, that it is understood that it's the parent's responsibility for the transportation.
Yeah, I guess that was my question was does in another district count as, so like Thornton's Ferry is a different district from Mastercola is
Yes,
a
it
different
is.
district. Okay.
Mhm. Yep.
That was terminology I wasn't sure of. Cool. Um, oh, this one I didn't understand. Page 6, section 4. The last sentence. If a parent or guardian believes that denial of a reassignment under this policy upon the child's disability, the parent guardian may appeal. Blah, blah, yada, yada. Is there a word missing between policy and upon?
Can you tell me again where you are?
Page 6, section 4. It's right at the top. Last sentence.
Okay.
Yeah. You said the last sentence, right? A parent believes in denial or under this policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's based upon, as
Yeah.
Amy suggested, right?
Yeah, Sandy didn't want to add words, which
Yeah.
I totally agree with. So,
Okay, so we'll modify that. Be grammatically correct.
and then the last page, section G, special education placements. A placement made relative to a student's special education needs and services shall not be deemed a change of school assignment for purposes of this section. I read that and went, wait a minute, should it say policy instead of section, or what does that mean? Am I just not understanding it?
I think it's related to like C and D meeting those requirements. C, students reassigned under this policy shall meet the admission requirements of the school. Special education placement would not be, a special education student placement would not be subject to that requirement in this policy.
And I kind of read that as that the services will be consistent from one place to another, that is not considered a material change.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I get it now. Thank you.
All right. Well, those are not material changes. So with those changes, we can entertain a motion since we've not had public comment and we did not make any material changes.
Mhm.
So I entertain a motion to accept this.
I will make a motion to accept, and I don't have it in front of me but to policy JCA, the change of class or school assignment on the basis of best interest or manifest educational hardship.
Second.
Seconded by Naomi. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The
Thank-
policy passes
thank you.
500,
Thank you very much.
or is adopted, I should say. All right. Moving on to approval of the non-public minutes. Is there a motion on the table?
Sorry. I'll make a motion to accept the October 3rd, 2022 non-public motions with one change to the voting. It should have been a 4-1.
Do I have a second with that amendment? I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 500. All right, consent agenda. Job descriptions.
In the October 3rd packet, the board received a collection of 4 job descriptions from HR Director Melissa Faslick. Those 4 job descriptions were the in-school interventionist, the teacher job description. This includes classroom teachers and unified art teachers, the technology coordinator 9 to 12, and the social emotional learning support specialist, or the SEL specialist, which is formerly known as the behavior specialist. So tonight, the board is considering the acceptance of those updated job descriptions.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Lori. Is there any discussion? Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. All right, committee reports.
I have a committee report. So on Tuesday, I met with the Healthcare Cost Containment Committee with Melissa Fazlick and the Wellness Committee for the Merrimack School District. We also had some Health Trust representatives there that were giving a bit of a preview of what's to come for their benefits coming down the road. Some of the more notable ones that came off was an update to their app platform, which as a user I cannot wait for because it's a terrible app. So I'm glad to hear that they are updating that. A couple years down the road, there's going to be a change in some of the options. One of the Blue Choice plans is going away in 2025. Couple other incentives as well for the Wellness Committee to share with their teachers. Some new prescription plans, things like that. The biggest thing that I took away, I think, as we have our chair of the budget committee here, is that the Health Trust folks have said that the guaranteed maximum rate is going to increase to going up 8%, which after 2 years of decreases puts us a little underneath the average for their customers. They said the average for all of their customers is about 8.4, so we're a little under that. But it is going to go up. So I thought that was worth sharing. That's it.
Any other committee reports? Correspondence. Lori.
I had one correspondent asking a question about an athletic question and, a question about the NHIAA.
Any other correspondence? Comments from the board? No comments. Well, with that, I will open the floor to public comments on agenda items. Chuck, you're the only one here.
I'm very pleased at the forward motion that has been exhibited by the school board regarding all things academic. And I look forward to working with the school district regarding ELOs. We are eager at the Historical Society to engage in that partnership. We have a great deal of expertise that is real world relevant. Personally, I'm stunned at what we have accomplished in 1 year, going from a failing organization to a very vibrant organization with a new facility. And speaking of which, I know it's not an agenda item, but there is a meeting tomorrow night that I'd like to invite you to. If you have the time and the interest, we have a speaker from the New Hampshire Humanities Council, Margot Burns, who is a 10th generation descendant of Rebecca Nurse. And she will be talking about the Salem witch trials and other adverse conditions that women in New England were put under. I'm looking forward to it as being very informative and interesting. There is a new spot in town. You people own it, and we're renting it from you, and we want you to know what we're doing with it. So anytime you need a hand from us, we remain available. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
5-0-0. Good night. Thank you.
Everyone sign these?